the internet bring us together once again, people. How are you? It is EC Radio, the House Arrest podcast, but it is Local Music Monday. How are you? Hope you're enjoying your Monday. If you are in Central New York right now, get your asses outside. Watch this podcast from outside because it's beautiful outside. We tried to get our guests to do it, but that just wasn't happening. Anyways, much love to EJA Moving Services, the professional movers. When you're ready to move and relocate, hit up Eddie and his crew. He'll move your studio. He'll move your grandmother. He'll move your Aunt Hildred to Florida if she needs to move to Florida. He'll move you pretty much wherever you need to go. EJAmoving.com. Much love to Utica Coffee. We're doing an event there. The D is giving away free coffee July 18th. Coffee on the D at Utica Coffee. Come on down. It's going to be from 11 to 1. It's going to be a good time. Also, much love to Saranac and attorney Dave Longaretta. If you need legal help, give him a call today at 315-735-6162. Like I said, it's Local Music Monday, and joining me every Local Music Monday is my homie, my compadre, my tag team partner, my homie, my ace. Give it up from the phenomenal band Showtime, my friend Justin Smithson. How are you, Justin? How was your weekend, brother?
Doing freaking great, man. Glad to be back playing again and, enjoying life. So,
where were you guys this weekend?
We played Thursday at Lucan's and Friday at One Jenny.
Oh, cool, man. Good turnouts?
Yeah, really good turnouts, actually. So, got a few gigs coming up this week. And
how's the vibe in the clubs right now? Is everybody just happy to hear live music right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think that people are finally getting out of that awkward state where they didn't know what to do when they were watching live music because it's been so long. But I think that they're slowly getting back into it. Everybody's just happy to be out. Beautiful nights that we had, and just enjoying being around each other, I guess.
Yeah, indeed, brother, indeed. Since it is Local Music Monday, and this is your show, brother. This is your show. So I think you should introduce the guest.
Back again for part 2 of the amazing first part interview we had with him. This is Bob Acquaviva, local legend in the Utica area.
How are you doing? Good to see you, brother.
And beyond. Good to see you, Bob.
Very good.
Part 2. Take 2. So the sad news coming across Facebook and social media today that another local legend, Benny Mardones, passed away this morning. And Bobby, you and Benny had a long history together, recording some albums together. You were also in the movies. Talk about what kind of a man Benny was and some of your history you have together.
Benny was, I would tell everybody he was like a cross between a Baptist preacher and like P.T. Barnum, because he lit up a room. He was a pretty exciting guy. He was pretty crazy and very exciting. He was a tremendous talent. I mean, he was a great singer. I fell in love with his music as a youngster, like really young. And when it came time to do with my band Mere Mortals, we ended up cutting into the night. And I had worked with him previously I was just an assistant when they were doing Unauthorized. I was just a runner on that. And I got to know him a little bit, but I was so young then we didn't get to strike up a big relationship. But, UCA recording is where that was done in Utica on Lenox Ave. I don't know if a lot of people know that, but that's where a lot of that was done unauthorized.
Wow.
Geez, I don't know. It had to be 1980 whatever when they did that, 82 or 80, whatever in that range. But I know in 1985, we went in and recorded Into the Night. And somehow, I think through Bob Yager, who owned UCA, had told Benny that, we recorded the song. So, that's my first meeting with him. He had to listen to it, and we got permission from him, and he was really cool about it. He was very cool about it. But then, he came and did the Glacier Ridge commercial at my place, which was a popular drink, and they shot the billboards in the studio, I remember. We recorded a bunch of other songs for different artists. I mean, I worked with him a lot. Here's a really cool thing that people might remember is, and you see this is kind of ties in with you a little bit. When Benny played the Stanley Theater, he was brought there by, I think, Tom Barnaba, who owned Lily's at the time. Mm-hmm. And I remember Taurus opened, we opened for him. And then right after that, we got done with the show. We had to hustle over there to play the show over at Lily's. And then I remember Benny came, and we kicked into Springsteen there, Born to Run, and Benny got on top of a table and did the count. That part where they do the count. And I'll tell you what, it was like it was a scene out of a movie because the place was, you couldn't even move in the place. But when he stood on that table and did all the people counted it in, I'm telling you, it was magical. I mean, a lot of good moments with the guy. I mean, I was in his movie too. He asked me to be in his movie. There's a movie about his life called Into the Night. It was kind of a surreal experience. I think I'm pretty sure, as I can remember, they filmed my segment at the Turning Stone. That's where my segment was filmed. And I remember when the movie came out, I was in between like Tony Mutola and Bon Jovi. Like, it was amazing. Like, who's this guy? But it was good. And my story, of course, I was talking about how, when I first met Benny, he was all screwed up on drugs. I mean, we play shows at Coleman's opening for him. You come in, start screaming, yelling. You could tell there was something up. And, but I became good friends with him. I mean, kind of lost touch in the end a little bit, but he was really something. He was really incredible. I mean, I think for the area, he was a really big deal. I think people also forget that he was a great singer, but he was also a tremendous songwriter. I always had a lot of, and he definitely was an influence on my career for sure. Hopefully he's resting comfortably now. He went through a lot there in the end.
He sure did. Yeah, absolutely.
Justin, did you know him at all?
I didn't really know him. I met him when we were three-peat, which was the very first incarnation of the band, which is Joe, Jose, and I. I was 13 years old, and it was what I thought was our first big break. I was so excited, like we got to open up for, a famous person at Foles Beach House. I mean, Benny was, as famous as you get around here, I guess, at the time, and, he always, I don't think he was from the area, but there was something he loved about this area that would make him come back all the time. And, we got to sit and chat with him for a second, and that was just, a notch again up on wonderful things that some of us musicians get to do in the area. You know what I mean? And he was cool, and of course he put on an amazing show as usual. And it was definitely a lot of fun.
I think a lot of people don't realize Benny was very big when he first came out. I mean, Rundgren produced the first album, was called Thank God for Beautiful Girls. That record didn't do that great, but I think Benny's very first performance was sold out Madison Square Garden opening for Richie Havens. And I remember him telling me he did Unchained Melody on the piano himself, and he brought the house down. And that was his start. Oh, and then from there, the first album did pretty good, but that second record that has Into the Night, She's So French, those are great songs, an incredible record, incredible roster of musicians played on that stuff. I mean, he was really formidable. I think the thing that held Benny back was he was an overbearing guy. I mean, he was really powerful presence, but he was kind of a fun overbearing guy. He was a very big presence. Like I said, he was like a Baptist preacher meets P.T. Barnum, if you can imagine that, with a great ton of talent. He'll be missed.
Great description.
Absolutely.
How did he get to the area? He's not originally from here, but what was he like? He married to a girl in Syracuse or something? How was his tie into CNY?
Syracuse just embraced him. They just embraced him. He was his own. I mean, he went through periods where he was really down and out, and Syracuse was always there for him. There was just something about that Into the Night and Benny Mardones that resonated with the area. It's just a really weird phenomenon, but then they kind of claimed him as his own, and he would have times where he was really up, and he would still, support the area and come back, and he always knew he could get what he wanted from the fans here. They loved him. He was very loved. I mean, you could see the outpouring on Facebook is just incredible.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He loved the fans. He really did.
I checked his Spotify today, and he's still getting over 170,000 monthly listens. Like, he's still getting a lot of traction.
Well, Into the Night has to be one of the all-time big songs. I mean, it's a fabulous song. I mean, it's as soon as you hear it, it just resonates periods in your life. Like, for me, I was always intrigued by the vocal is just over the top. He just really knew how to take a song to another place. I mean, you also have to remember, Benny was also on American Bandstand. He had a song called American Bandstand. Benny did a lot of stuff. If you research Benny, you'll see that he did a lot of stuff. It just, like I said, he kind of shot himself in the foot, I think, with his career, because he's kind of an unstable guy. He did it the way he wanted to do it. I guess that's a good way to be.
Yeah, much respect for that, for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, if that's the way, that's the way he felt about things. He was in command of his own destiny. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, absolutely.
The music.
I like to work.
The music roots in this area are just so deep, right? There's so many people that have played on albums that you don't even know that were from the area. We could do like a whole separate podcast on this. Go ahead. Yeah, give me an example.
If I walk out my door and I make a right and I walk down the street 6 doors, Steve Edwards, his mother lives there. Steve Edwards was the guitar player from Elf with Ronnie James Dio. And that's where Steve was, 6 doors away from my house. And Steve is, if you guys were a little older, you'd know who he was. He was a fabulous guitar player. As a man, Paul Andrerosa left the Frogs. Steve was the guy who stepped in. Later on, he became first, but his other gig was he was the guitar player in Otis Day and the Knights. So he played on, he played that stuff, yes. And his mom still lives down the street. Now, if you go out of my door and you walk 6 doors down on the adjacent street, that's where you would find the guy who produced Addicted to Love and produced Talking Heads and, Eric Thorngren. So my block here is like Eric Thorngren's massive if you look him up. He was also in a local band called Celebration. That was a big band. Yep. And you know who else was in Celebration? Franny Cosmo. And he was in Celebration with his 2 other brothers. And the other guy was this guy who ended up becoming very famous as a producer. He produced, like I said, Robert Palmer, Talking Heads, and he's still in the business. Eric Thorngren, 5 doors down from my house. I don't know. I just ended up in this neighborhood, which was kind of cool. But I see Edwards' mom all the time. She's still alive, and he's still doing well. And I think everybody from Eric's have passed on because I know Eric's got to be in his 70s now. So, yeah, that's just a few people in the area. There's a ton of people in this area who did things. No question about it. Well, what else can you do here, especially in the winter, is make music probably. I mean, you know what's I could give you guys a little clue, though, about how things really are going, though. So every year I do this, they ask me to do this thing at MVCC where I'll go and I'll speak to all these kids that are coming in as new MV students. I'll do like music industry. And we see about 2,500 kids. And we see them all because they come in groups of 15. They have to see us. And it's like a day event. And there's people there for all kinds of industries, any industry you could think of. So the gym is full of people. Well, every year I always poll when they come up to me. I'll say, who plays an instrument? Who plays this? Who sings? Who records? This year I had no one, not one person out of 2,500 people that played an instrument. I mean, some people maybe played a little violin or a little this, little that. A couple of guys said that they did some home recording and they rapped. No one played guitar. No one played drums. No one played bass. No one sang, and no one was in a band. 2,500 kids. Now, the year before, I might have had 5 or 6. The year before that, I might have had 10. Maybe that's where it's going now. It's unfortunate, but that's where it's going. We're dinosaurs. Dinosaurs. It makes me feel, because the area used to be a real hotbed of music, It really did. I mean, there's still stuff going on. As long as you guys don't mind, there's one thing I do want to say, though, before we really get cooking, because I forgot last time, is I see people, there's a lot of people in the area that do record. They'll go and they'll record, they'll do stuff, which is great. But most of them don't record here. And to me, it's a mystery because Jeff Adderman's place, Big Blue North, is absolutely incredible. I would say it's probably the best studio in upstate New York. Now, there were growing pains there before Jeff took it over. I did a record there with Mark Macri, and I didn't have the result I really wanted when I was there. But this was before Jeff had it. They changed it. I always felt that the control room was too big. And the reason why I think I felt that, because the console that was originally in there was so small and it didn't take up enough footprint in the room. Once that room got filled up, and you could probably justify to this, Justin, that whole room sounded different. And,
it sure did, yeah.
It's an incredible facility. Jeff's very good. Him and his wife do an incredibly good job. They're very hospitable. I would say that you'd be very foolish to go anyplace else. I mean, I did go other places. I'm not going to say I didn't. I did. But this was before they did the renovations. I'm working there now. I'm planning on doing stuff there now. And I went and did a tour there, and I was super impressed by what they got going on. And if you can't make a good record in that place, it's not the place. Dude. It's definitely not the place. He's got stuff there that most facilities in the country don't have. And, he's a worker. So I think that, if you go in there with the right attitude, you can come out of there with something really good. And his prices are reasonable. He'll work with you. I'm not doing a commercial for him, folks. He's not giving me anything for free. I just think that he's on Genesee Street. He's another one. He's like 2 blocks from my house. Like, go look at him first. If you think that you want to go someplace else because you want an experience going someplace else, once you step into this studio of his, you'll feel like you're someplace else. You don't have to be someplace else. You'll feel like you've been transported someplace else because it doesn't feel like a spot in Utica, in the middle of Utica. It feels like it is a tremendous facility, and you should definitely give the guy some support. And we don't want it to go away. It's a really cool place.
Yeah. There's something about Jeff too that I learned over the years, that he is an absolutely incredible musician as well.
Genius level.
Unbelievable the way he plays, and I think that transfers into his engineering as well, because he is just as passionate about recording as he is about playing. And it doesn't matter what style of music goes in there. It's like he grew up his whole life listening to the style of music you're playing, because that's what he's putting into every time. And I mean, you throw, like Bob, you said, the new board came in there, the Rupert Neve board came in there, and with that, they have something that a lot of studios don't have. And Pam had said that it's called like a hybrid studio, so like they could record entirely analog to tape. I think they have 2.5-inch tape, right?
2-inch, and what you're talking about is a system. They have a system called CLAS, CLAS. There's very few studios in the world that have CLAS, because already CLAS is gone. It doesn't exist. But when it did exist, and it does exist in their facility, it's a brilliant idea. And what it does is it marries Pro Tools to analog. So you're running through the taping, but you're running it into Pro Tools. So you're getting the sound from tape into a digital format. It's brilliant. And I mean,
and they can use
probably a little that there because you're using tape too, but it's still just to have offered to do that is incredible.
Well, plus we did Mike, when I produced Mike Berdisi's album, we did that was one of the first times that we used that whole system, and he used one 15-minute tape. He used one 15-minute tape for the whole entire record, because what he did is you just record and like it would go on to Pro Tools, and then you rewind it and use it again. You know what I mean? It was amazing how they did that, and you got that warmth of the analog and the tape, and the familiar and fantastic editing qualities of Logic or Pro Tools. Whatever you wanted to use. But
I know that I did the Red Herring record for Jeff, and I remember. I
still have it.
I remember making that record with those guys. I would go to Rome and do and the guy who played drums in that band, I think his last name was Galuppi.
Rob
Galuppi, they were all exceptionally good players. He was an exceptional drummer. He was also kind of an exceptional pain in the butt, because he really knew what he wanted his drums to sound like, which was actually really good to have. So I remember sitting behind him in their rehearsal and watching him play and listening to his kit from behind, so that I could get what he wanted on tape. And we were able to get what he wanted on tape. And that record was an EP, and it's a very good record. And I remember we really pushed things to the limit. And that was before those guys even were interested in actual, like Jeff being an engineer or whatever. He was more of a musician at that point, because he was really concentrated on that effort. But you could tell that those guys were on a different plateau than other musicians. They were going someplace different. But
absolutely,
because it was different, I think it hindered them a little bit, because nobody really understood what they were doing. But it was great, and I actually still have a copy myself, and I have pretty good memories of recording. It was really cool. I remember stacking a lot of stuff, and like I said, it was the drummer was difficult but good, and we definitely were able to achieve what I know that was cut 24 2-inch, and then it was that back then it went from there to ADAT. I remember it was mixed on ADAT, so it was basically the same form. They were a good band. Jeff's a talented guy. Definitely. All those guys in that band were talented.
I remember the first time I ever heard him play, Gillis made him go in and sound check the piano in the live room. And he said, play this song. And I'm not familiar with old Genesis, so I have no idea what song he wanted him to do. But he goes, I don't know if I remember that. He goes and he starts playing, and he's doing these things. And like all of us are in the studio with this confused yet mouth on the floor look on our face. Like, what the hell's going on? Like, what is that incredibleness going on in there? And the funny thing is Gillis is ripping him apart. Like, he's got the cans on, and Gillis is ripping him apart. You fucked that one up. Oh, what the hell? That's a B flat. He's yelling at him and screaming at him.
I'm sure.
You know, and both of them were on such a different plane of musicianship than the rest of us. And I mean, we're just sitting there going, what the hell are they even talking about? You know what I mean? But I mean, I thought he freaking nailed it. But Gillis is like, you could have done better than that. I'm like, really? Oh, man.
The thing about Gillis was, don't forget, he grew up with no TV. His parents wouldn't allow it in the house. So they had a grand piano where the TV sat. And there was many times, because, we used to rehearse there at Shaw Street. And, there was many times we would just sit upstairs and he'd play piano, because he was actually a very good piano player, too. Not only was he a great piano player, but, Gil had his brain works completely different than most people. Probably that's probably why he's living in Tasmania right now.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Right.
It's the only place that can contain him.
Well, Gillis's accolades are huge too, right? I mean, he was like producing a lot of those hardcore albums back in the day, like the Cro-Mags and Sick of It All. And he was right in the middle of all that early 90s hardcore scene down in New York City, man. Guy's a legend. Another one from New York, producing all these great music that it's underneath our nose and nobody knows about.
Well, a lot of that stuff was cut here at my place, because we had a timeshare agreement. Gillis would come up and use my studio. So, because he didn't really have a big tracking room to start. Then, of course, he got Big Blue, but he originally started in his house. So he would bring bands up to my place, track, and then bring the stuff back. And we had like an exchange deal that we would do, because sometimes he couldn't keep up with the stuff he had. So I would track for him, or he would do stuff for me. He did a lot of mastering for me. So, I mean, our relationship started me and Gillis were friends very early. We met, believe it or not, at a grammar school dance. He was a drum tech for a band that was playing. And, the band was Phil Arcuri's band. It was Phil Arcuri, some guitar player, Dave Tooker, and I think Tom Edicola was the drum, and Gillis was the drum tech. And I walked in there with my band, which was myself, John Battle, Sr., and Teddy Pape, who was the bass player. We were a trio. And we walked in, and somebody said, hey, why don't you guys do a tune? And we got up there and we did Jet City, I remember, and Gil was amazed. And at that point, me and him just connected, and we became friends. Now, there was such a distance. I lived in East Utica. He lived all the way over here in South Utica. We were young at that point, so nobody was driving. So we lost track for a couple of years. And then a couple of years after that, somehow I ended up moving up here all the way up on the top of West Street. And I was walking from, I think, Proctor, carrying my guitar. And this other kid who plays drums, Carl Ambrzelli, pulled up next to me. I didn't even know him, and says, hey, you look like Paul Stanley from Kiss. Do you know any Kiss songs? And I said, yeah. I just moved in the neighborhood. He goes, listen to this.
Like, I know them all.
I knew a lot of them back then. This was even before, Destroyer had probably just come out, 76. So I remember him saying he was driving a blue Cougar, one of those smaller ones, and it was all done up, mag wheels, everything. It's Carl Ambrzelli, who plays with me now in the Elvis band. We stayed friends all through the years. He says to me, he goes, I live over here on Brinkerhoff. He goes, upstairs in my house, I got a drum set and amps up there. He goes, get in, let's jam. Never met the guy, just jumped in the car with him and went to his house and played. That's what we did years ago. Then from there, we were friends, lifetime friends. So he says to me, look, I know this other guy in South Utica who plays bass. So I go over there, guess who it is? Gillis. He's playing bass now. So me, him, and Gillis. And then this other kid, Dave Oganowski, we ended up putting together a big set of music and doing a whole set of Kiss songs. That's how me and Gillis became friends. And then from then on, we started playing together in bands. Yep, wow. That's how we became good friends.
So I have a question. Talk a little bit, because, honest to God, we joke about doing a 6-part interview with Lenny Milano, but I think that we might have to do a 6-part interview with Bob, too, because the stories are just endless. I love it. But talk a little bit about the White Tower building, because I was a little bit too young for that, but I've heard many stories about that building, and I'd love to hear some of your memories and stuff about that.
The White Tower was cool because you got to see everybody was there. anybody who was a band were rehearsing in that band as long as you could afford the rehearsal space. But I think the highest point there might have been 8 or 10 bands in there. And Luftwaffe did a lot of rehearsing in there. I mean, that's where we rehearsed before we took the band on the road. And I remember across the hall there was a band called Kabuki, and they ended up coming on the road with us. They were our opening act. And then upstairs, one floor might have been Chicks, who ended up moving to LA, and heavy bands on the top floor. I think Jim Crosway's band was on the top floor, and it was great. It was really good, and there was only one elevator in the building. Of course, it was always broke when we had to do gigs. So, we're huffing gear up 4 flights of stairs to do shows. But yeah, it was really cool. And then, for me, it was really cool that afterwards we ended up, right across the street is where I opened the studio. I could look out my window, and there it was until they tore it down. But yes, I still have a brick from that place.
No
I
shit.
kept one of the bricks from the. Yep, those were the good old days. I mean, it was a whole different vibe. There was competition, but Robbo, you could come in. Robbo just showed up. It's like
Bravo!
I thought you were last.
No, they're over here online with us.
Who's that?
Z.
Hey,
we're doing the. TV
Hey, Robbie, how are you, buddy?
What's up, Rob?
Gotta get right there. He is.
Hey.
How you
Good to
doing,
see you,
brother?
buddy.
So yeah, we that's how we started. That was a great place to rehearse. I mean, we didn't start rehearsing there. Of course, nobody had money to pay for a rehearsal space. We were in people's cellars, but that rehearsal space was dynamite for us because we were able to play all hours of the night. And yeah, I wish there was still something like that for all the local bands because I think there'd be more of a scene.
Yeah.
Back in the day, you could walk up and down Genesee Street and hear all these bands playing late night, like 6, 7, 8 o'clock at night, because there was people playing at the White Tower building, and then of course over there, the New York Connection had some bands over there too, Pizza Classics. There were some practice spaces, and you can hear all the great local bands playing it, like on a Monday night up and down Genesee Street.
Well, back then there was no Pizza Classic yet. You find Tommy working over at the Mellow Subs, and then
that's right.
Pizza at Capri Pizza.
Capri, right?
Wow. Then once that closed and Tommy put his place, but the whatchamacallit had been gone by then. I think the White Tower building was gone by then. And Tommy, of course, thank God he opened because he did give people a place to rehearse because it's a very difficult thing to do with space.
Yeah, that was. It's so funny because obviously, you guys had such great. Yeah, you guys had such great rehearsal spaces, and we were lucky in the Valley. We had the Marine Corps in Ilion, and that was kind of like the same thing. I know that for a long time that's where a lot of bands practice. When we first started out, there was 7 bands practicing in the Marine Corps at that point, and now there's 2. Now there's 2. There's us and the Bomb. That's it.
Wow. Hey, Genesee Joe's checking in, and he wants to know who Bobby trapped in the rehearsal room door at the White Tower building. Did you trap somebody in there?
I don't know. I don't know if I can remember that, but I know there was some stuff that went down there in the White building. There's no question about it. There was a lot of stuff that went down there. I don't know if I remember. He'd have to refresh my memory on that one because I don't remember that one. So many. He also
wants to know who rehearsed at Genesee Paint.
Oh, I think that was Phil Arcuri and Sal Bosco, I think, were the ones that rehearsed there. They had a band long time ago. And Sal owns Genesee Paint. But I don't think it was because Sal owned Genesee Paint that the parents would let him rehearse there. But I don't think it was anybody that, like any of the bands that you guys would know. I think it was just them doing that. Yeah. Yeah, the White Tower was always something that.
Joe's saying you rigged the door so it was trapped. So for security purposes.
I didn't do that. I'll tell you that story. Here's what it was. The Petrellos, Joey and Andy, and they had a band called Chicks. Joey, Andy Petrello, Carl Griska, Bob Edwards, and Michelini was the keyboard player then, Tim Michelini. And they were always worried about somebody breaking into their room. Well, they rigged the door with some kind of smoke bomb thing that let off some kind of weird gas that would like choke you, and they cleared out the whole building. One of them by mistake forgot it was rigged, and they opened the door and they cleared out the whole building. Yeah, I didn't have anything to do with that. And you know what? I came at the tail end of it, so I didn't get gassed. But Gillis did, I think. I'm pretty sure he got gassed that night. And it was, because those guys those guys were really up on all that stuff. They used to have a store in New Hartford called Guns of the World. They knew all about guns and survival stuff. They were very big on it. Very intelligent guys, really great guys, but they were always worried about somebody breaking in their room because I think somebody had before. And that happened down there. We would leave our gear there. I would never leave guitars, but they could steal anything else if they wanted to, Mm-hmm. But I don't remember anybody taking anything from Luftwaffe. I think they thought we were too nuts, so they never bothered us. That's a true story. Vinny Cavo, I remember. It wasn't during the Luftwaffe era. It was during Mere Mortals. It happened because I remember Vinny got hit with the gas, and he whined about it forever. Yeah, it was pretty fun. It was pretty fun. Yeah, I'm telling you, it was like the napalm, like the whole place was bombed out. You couldn't go in there for hours. Yeah, cloud of great smoke.
That was the thing, though. A lot of competition amongst the bands back then.
Yeah, kind of, but we were friends. I mean, it was competition.
Yeah. Okay. You were friends with everybody in the White Tower?
Oh, yeah. We were all good friends. Tony was in there for a while at that period, too. That was before he did Taurus because they were doing Toys then. It was him, Kelly, Shai Galad on bass. And they had a band called Toys, which was a good band that they had. And they were rehearsing in there, too. So I think that's where their interaction definitely with me and with Gillis came into play because they were the young kids. So we would always be talking. They were quite a bit younger than us, Yeah. We were like the Godfathers. Before that, though, you'd had bands like Holiday and those guys also practicing in that building.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, absolutely.
So how did you now? Obviously, Taurus was a 3-piece for a long time, and then you and Finelli. Did you guys join at the same time?
Well, you know what happened? I had the studio at that point, and Tony got a hold of me, and it was a different band then. There was a kid named Mike Menza played drums. Mike Menza, and he's very famous kind of in New York City now. He plays in a band called Jesse's Girl, and a very good drummer. He was the drummer, and it was Tony and Joel Ciotti at that point. That was the version of the band. And they came in and recorded a couple songs with me, and they were managed by a woman who used to manage soap opera stars. Shan something her name was, I don't remember. And they were really down when they came in. They came in and recorded 2 songs, and Tony was like, he was really down because he didn't have a band. And I was like, I started to work with them. He's like, and I said to him, I said, it would be fun. I'd come out and play some shows with you. I said, but we got to have a keyboard player if we're going to play this stuff. I said, what about Finelli next door? And he just laughed. He goes, Finelli? He goes, he can't. I says, yes, he can play. I says, he'd be great in a rock band. Up until then, he only played with his parents. Yeah. So I remember we staged a rehearsal and we started practicing. So the original version of Taurus was me, Mike Menza, Joel Ciotti, and Joe Finelli. That was the original version. And that Menza guy at that point, he was a good drummer, but he wasn't the right guy at that point. And I suggested, I think Tony and Kelly were on the outs then over something. And I suggested, why don't we all get together? I remember we had a meeting and we all kind of got together and everything got cleared. And then Kelly came back in the band. And then, of course, we ended up doing a lot of great shows with Taurus. Yeah. And we even opened up for Bob Dylan. At the Stanley. Who does that? There's stories with, I remember Dylan standing side stage when we were playing, when we walked off stage. He said, what's the name of your band, boy? Just like that. And I forgot who said, somebody said Taurus, and he had a bottle of JD with him or something, and he says, can I come in your dressing room? And I remember him and Tony passing the bottle back and forth, getting, completely, this is before he even played Bob Dylan. Wow. Yeah. And we did that show, and it was believe it or not, that was a very successful show. It was like weird. It was like Taurus and Dylan went good together. So when we got all done, the next day we got a call from them, and he wanted to know, his crew or his whoever was managing wanted to know if we would go on the road and do shows with them. And he didn't understand, or whoever was managing at that point, that we didn't get paid any money and that we couldn't go on the road for no money. That's understand that. What do you mean you didn't get paid that night? Well, we just did it to do it. You know? Sure. And we were all at jobs and nobody could just get up and leave, But that was one show that it really sticks in my head. But one thing I do remember about that show was Finelli did not play there was a fill-in, and it was Frank Tellerico played keyboards at that show. Yes. And there was also
that's not a bad fill-in.
Yes, and there was tour shows where Joe didn't play because he was busy with his parents. I give him a lot of credit. He stuck by them, so we would have a fill-in, or we'd do a four-piece. Those were fun times. I liked playing Tony stuff. For me, it was a no-brainer because I was kind of the rhythm guitar player, so we did a lot of jumping around. I think I got a video at MVCC where he's right in the front row with long hair. Is that true?
I was there.
Yes. I think I got video. There's video footage. I think you were standing on my side. I was playing a white flying V. Yep. And I think you had a cap on and long hair. Yes.
And a face full of pimples.
I don't know. I don't remember that. But you had to be awful young then. 91?
Yes. So I'm like 16 at the time. And that was like one of the first times, well, not one of the first times, but like one of the first bands locally that just was like, wow, okay, there's like something happening here. And then, of course, Good Old Summertime, and we'd always go down the Good Old Summertime and see a lot of local bands, because we couldn't go into the clubs, not until later on, of course, but and we were able to see all these great bands. MVCC used to have it was a good little hub of music back then. There were so many great bands playing back then.
That show was packed. I remember.
Yeah.
Of it. It was.
Isn't that on YouTube somewhere?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. And to find that Stanley show I'm talking about too, before we played with Benny Mardonis, I think we did that as a four-piece. Yeah, those were fun shows. Those were fun shows for sure. Those were fun shows. I mean, it would be cool to see Tony get back out there and do it again.
Yeah.
I mean, he should get out there and do it again. He's great, good entertainer, and good songs.
And he can play too, man. He's a shredder. Like the guy not only can he sing, he shreds like guitar.
Well, consider the fact I played rhythm in that band. I'm a lead guitar player, and I played rhythm in that band. Those were his songs. He knew what he was doing. I mean, I played a couple times I got solos in that band, but I didn't care. I enjoyed it. I like being the guy jumping around playing rhythm. Those were easy, fun shows.
Sure.
And I didn't mind doing it for him because Tony's a great guy, and
absolutely,
those were good times. Cannot say anything bad about it. People should buy his music.
Bobby, did you have any leg kicks back then? Were you a leg kick guy? Like, what was your go-to move back then playing rhythms?
Oh my
God, jump around a little bit.
Go on and look at that video. I was all over the place. I was the oldest. I think in '91 I was like 32 or 30, around 30. I was the oldest guy in the band. But yeah, I was still a rock guy. Even I was always that. That was always my thing. You get on stage, you go up there to perform for people, not just stand there.
I just want to say 1991, I was 10 years old, guys.
There you go.
Out there.
Bobby, so what happened after Taurus? Where did you go after Taurus?
Well, think about it. During Taurus, I had the studio. So the studio was like insanity at 91. Well, right after Taurus, right after Taurus, I went on the road with Suicidal Tendencies. Afterwards. I took a break for about a year. It was Megadeth. It was the Symphony of Destruction, that tour with Suicidal in the United States. In Europe, it was us and Rage Against the Machine. So that was a good time. And then also those with Stone Temple before they hit. So that was all a good time. I wanted to take a break. I had been solidly doing studio stuff, and my buddy Tom Abraham offered me to go out on the road and see the world. I mean, I got to go to a bunch of countries and got to see every state, and those were fun. And I never was a big Suicidal fan, but after being with them for a while, they were a fun band. It was crazy, crazy.
What did you get the whole effect? Like, did you have a tech and everything?
I was the tech.
He was the tech.
He's tech.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
I was Rocky's tech.
Gotcha.
It was great. And then when we did Infectious Grooves, I teched for him and Adam because Infectious Grooves had to play in LA because Suicidal couldn't because of the gang stuff. So it was a great time. I mean, picture it look at it this way. In 1991, I was making $1,500 a week as his tech plus $245 per diem.
Wow.
Good money.
Huge.
As a guitar. And they were
huge.
They were big. That was the biggest tour they ever did. And then it ended up going on a tour in America for a little while too. So it was good. It was a good experience and it was fun to do. Then right after that, I came back and I started doing Big Crush. That was like a thing I could do while I have the studio musically for myself. But there was so many other things. I was managing this band and working with this band. And like I said, making all those records, you make over 200 records, you're kind of busy, you're definitely busy. I think 95 was like the renaissance of the studio. So you had everybody recording records there at that point. Mm-hmm. You name it, they were there. Especially all the local from, the Boogeyman, George Rossi, and Dracula Jones, and, everybody who was big at that point were in the studio making a record. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Sure. Bob, talk about, people don't really understand what a guitar tech does when they're on the road. Describe the job description that a guitar tech goes through on a day-to-day basis.
Well, first off, you got to know how to set up a guitar. And if somebody like Rocky, I was Rocky's tech, the guy who wore the black guy, the Pittsburgh Pirate hat. He was endorsed by Ibanez, so he had 7 guitars out. So every day that you played, you changed 7 guitar strings, 7 sets of guitar strings, but they weren't regular. They all had Floyd Roses on them. And one of them was called the Universe, was a 7-string before people even knew what a 7-string was. So that was something I was doing every day. Plus he had a very elaborate rig. He had a Mesa Boogie rig, which was massive. You had to take care of that, dealing with the wireless systems. And this is, when you're on the road, a lot of people don't realize it's like being in the service. You do the same thing every day. You're working, doing the same day. You eat the same time, blah, 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 everything the same thing every day. It's a lot of work. And then for watching Rocky, it was double the work because he would get into trouble. So he was getting a lot of trouble. I mean, the second date of our U.S. tour, he cut his finger off.
Oh.
On his, how about that? So this hand, his right hand, his third finger, he cut this much of his digit off. So, Robert Torillo, he's the bass player in well, he was the bass player in Suicidal Tendencies. So they used to play hockey. They play hockey, and we have the whole floor of a hotel, and they play hockey. They have a ball and hockey sticks. They play hockey. We're screwing around, and Rocky must have had his hand in the door jam. Robert closed the door, and his finger came off. Oh. So now, picture doing the whole rest of the tour where the guy was missing a digit. I had to be there and change his bandage for him. It was miserable, and he was miserable. You don't think it hurts, but when you're moving your hand like this, that blood's flow and you got a digit, I'll tell you what, it was painful. And he had to finish the whole rest of the tour like that. Not only was it painful for me, let me tell you, it was a lot of work, but you become good friends when things like that happen. I picked his finger up the floor and put it in a cup of ice. As soon as I was right there when it hit in a cup of ice, and the ambulance came, and I remember calling Tom Abraham and going, Tom, Rocky just cut his finger off. It was like 2 a.m. He just hung up on me. And I called him back and he go, Tom, Rocky cut his finger off, come downstairs. And when he finally came down, he was like, oh, my God, because we just started the tour. That could have ended the tour. But in the hospital all night, and I remember the doctor coming out and going, well, should we sew it back on? And I looked at Tom and go, we're going to make the call if they're going to sew his finger back on? So I said, well, is it work? And the guy goes, no, he won't have any feeling. And I said, well, just fix it then. Don't sew it back on. And they didn't. So if you look at Rocky, he's missing that much of his finger on his right hand. But, he did a lot of 3-finger tapping. He would have never been able to do it if he didn't have feeling. So he had to learn how to do it. But yeah. I know the stories are endless, but I have no idea. I guess right place at right time or wrong place at right time. I don't know.
Right.
Those were fun, though.
How epic is that? You got to see Rage Against the Machine every night in Europe. Did you watch any of their shows?
Oh, we had to. I mean, when you're in Europe, it's close. I mean, so yeah, almost every show I became good friends with those guys. That was their first tour, their first big tour. Tom Morello was a really good guy. They were all good guys. The singer was an exceptionally nice guy. I remember the bass player and drummer were very quiet, but Morello was kind of a hangout guy. He'd hang out with us. And Zach was a really very, very cool guy. I got to know him pretty well. They were good. They were really good, but the people in Europe didn't know how to take them at first because, they were a new band. The record hadn't broken. I remember people hurdling bottles at the stage. And they hung in there, though. They hung tough. I had got a good Morello story if you want to hear it.
Yeah, of course.
Interesting. So, Morello plays with the tremolo bar a lot on his guitar, the whammy bar. Well, we were doing a show, I don't know where it was, and he broke it. And they didn't carry their own techs. They had techs from over there that they would rent. So you don't bring your own techs over. But he didn't have a spare bar. And you can't just go to a store and buy a tremolo. bar in Europe. I think it was mine. Who knows where it was? But I had a spare bar. So Mike Mir from Suicidal says, you can't give him that bar. I said, what do you mean you can't give him that? He goes, oh, no. He goes, they should have been prepared and he should have had a backup bar. So how's this guy going to do shows without the bar? So I got the bar. It's mine. It doesn't belong to Suicidal Tendencies. It's in my kit. Well, he's got to pay for it. So by the time I gave him the bar, we were 2 days out from the next show. He was up to paying $500 for this Tremble bar. Now, of course, I was never going to let him pay the $500, but that was a ball bust. That was like christening the band. Suicidal was teaching those, hey, you got to bring backup stuff. So like 10 minutes before the show, I went into their dressing room, and they were bumming because he had a Tremble bar. And I handed him the bar. I said, here's the bar. I said, I was never going to make you pay for it. True story. But Mike was hardcore with that. Yep, he was very hardcore with them. He wanted them to learn a lot. Bro, I bet you he carries about 50 bars with him now.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. He was a nice guy, Tom Morello. You know what they call him on that whole tour? Lou Gossett, because he looked like Lou Gossett Jr. a little bit.
Yeah.
So everybody called him Gossett. You know, he didn't like that at all.
Sure.
All those Suicidal guys called him Gossett. Hey, Gossett. You know, he wasn't anybody yet. So picture, they were the opening act. You know, there's you take a lot of beatings on those opening act slots. But I got along great with them. After I gave him the Tremolo bar, we were great friends, you know. I hate them wait those 2 days, but that's what the Suicidal guys wanted. You got to do what they say, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure. Well, they're the ones paying your checks.
They were. I'll tell you what, though, Suicidal in Europe, you couldn't touch them. The crowd absolutely loved them. They were insane in Europe.
Wow.
Couldn't touch them. Blew those guys off the stage every night. But they're a new band. Blew them off the stage every night. Suicidal was absolutely incredible. Not because I worked for them. They were just incredibly, at that point, they were on top of their game. Mm-hmm. Nobody's better than Mir when he wants to do it. No, he's great. And he's another guy who's a super nice guy, super talented, and a very, very, very intelligent man. Don't let all that stuff about the soda and all that subliminal and all that stuff, don't let that fool you. That guy's an intelligent guy and a very nice guy, too.
What kind of houses were they playing in Europe? Was it stadiums or arenas, or were they playing clubs?
No, they were clubs. They were all clubs because they could never fill an arena. Okay. But they were the big clubs. They were the biggest clubs you could play.
Gotcha.
They were packed. Couldn't even move in them. They were packed. Like the Paradiso in Amsterdam was like a huge club with a Paradiso in it. And I mean, there was a couple nights where we had to pull the band off stage because the crowd was so rowdy. I mean, pull them physically, get them off stage. Yeah, I'm telling you, it was very scary. That was the European leg of that tour was very scary.
Wow.
That, no question about it.
Why is the fact that people, like bands, will go over to Europe and then they get huge in the United States? It happened to Hendrix. It sounds like it happened to Rage Against the Machine as well. What is it about Europe? It happened to Nirvana and the whole grunge thing. It all happened in Europe and then finally came over to here when Seattle blew up. Why is that, Bobby?
I think they're way more open-minded. You know, like we got to be like spoon-fed everything over here. Like, you know,
True.
Radio spoon-fed, but over there they're way open-minded. The other thing too is it's a much larger party scene over there. Like people go out. You know, they won't drink 2 beers. They'll drink 24 beers. You know, so they go over there and they rage. You know, they really love music over there and they support. You know, they don't have other things to do. Like we have a lot of other things to do in the States than they have over there. So, you know, I think, you know, I don't think it's the same now, Z, because of the social media crap, but it's at that point it was very, you know, people went out and supported bands. You know, they just, you know, and then back then, and also don't forget, in Europe, the ticket prices were a lot lower because you're seeing bands in clubs.
Right.
So it was different, but it was very cool. It was very cool. And that they handle things differently too over there. You know, you only play X amount of shows in a certain area. Back when I was doing that touring, there was no euros yet. So you had different currencies in different places, which was really tough. Those are hard tours to do. Even if they're a Class A tour, they're very difficult to do. Way harder to do than do the United States. States is a lot easier to do than Europe. Give people a lot of credit that keep going over there and doing it. Because, it's definitely good for the fans, but it's a lot of hard work.
Yeah.
You know, you got to have
management.
Don't forget, it's not even the same power. You have to have different stuff. You have to plug into a different hour a day. A whole different your amp in the wall. It's got to go in the box so it's difficult over there. It's not easy.
Sure.
It's a lot of work. But it was fun. I'm not going to say it was still friends with those guys too.
That's awesome.
Still friends.
I forgot that there was an electric thing with Europe. It's like an upside down plug, right? Is that what it is?
Sure. Oh yeah, absolutely. It's a different current too. So you can't just, like I said, you just don't plug in. You rent these boxes that, most of the time you go to Europe, you rent backline anyways, but that's just another factor that you consider, So if say you got a blow dryer from the United States and you go into a place in Italy, you're not going to just plug it into the wall. You got to have some kind of converter. So everything's different. The food, you got to know, what you're ordering. Everything's different. It's very, very different. But also, I'm going back to 91. I'm sure things have progressed a little bit since then, but for sure. It was cool. It was definitely a good thing to do. Definitely good. So after that, when I came back, like I said, around 94, the studio was hopping. We were super busy, like really, really busy. I think that's when Rob Ambrose came in and worked with me around 93 or 4. 92 Ambrose came on, 92. He was that's how we met, because we didn't know each other before that. He had went to Full Sail. So a lot of people don't realize that Robbo went to Full Sail and has an engineering degree. But he does.
That's
awesome.
He
went to Full Sail. And he came in the intern for me, which was probably one of the best things that could ever happen to me, because we became best friends, for life, basically. So, it's a hard like that, and we've been friends ever since. So it's a good thing.
Shout out, Robbie.
Hey. He's still here. Yeah, Robbo was there for all the ghosts in the studio, and he was there for everything. Yeah, he was there for all of it. Which is
cool.
Danny Melito wants to know when we're going to do part 3.
Whenever you want. I know we're not even close yet. Holy
no.
I do want to mention, I don't think we talked about it in part 1, is like you also are a guitar teacher and you give instructions and stuff like that. Yeah. Talk about that and how people, if they're interested in learning how to play guitar, how they can get in touch with you.
Yeah, I never was, but after a while, I decided to get into teaching, and I teach right at my house. I'm right in South Utica. You can get me right on Facebook. I'm Bob Acquaviva right on Facebook, and it's very reasonable. It's like $20 a half hour, $40 for a full hour. I don't take that many students. I have a few openings right now. If you want to learn stuff that you want to learn the modes, you want to, you're advanced and you want to even advance more, I could do that with you. If you're just a beginner, I can help you with that. I don't like to take anybody. You got to be at least 6 years old. Anything younger than that, it's really hard to absorb. Even 6 is kind of young unless they're kind of exceptional. I think Justin would agree with that. Kind of tough to be that young. They don't really. But yeah, I teach, and I still do a lot of studio stuff. I'm producing a couple of records right now. Studio on the 3rd floor of my home, full blown. Like I said, I would go track it. Sure.
Did he freeze up?
Yeah, I think so.
Bobby, you frozen? Bobby's frozen. Oh, we are. And this frozen moment. Yep. And this frozen moment is brought to you by EJA Moving Services, the professional movers. When it's time to move and relocate, hit up EJAmoving.com. Have a move wherever you need to go. They're safe. They're professionals. They give you free boxes too. They'll pack your stuff for you too. They're awesome over at EJA Moving Services. So give them a shot today when you're ready to move and relocate. That frozen moment brought to you by EJA Moving Services. Thank you.
Good. Perfect.
Yeah, buddy. Yeah, that's how it goes, buddy. But Bob, this has been awesome, man, and I love your stories. And we should do a part 3 down the road. And we didn't even get into the 2000s. There's the whole 2000s. And when you were the guitar stores and all that other stuff that you were doing. So we probably should do a part 3 down the road, and it'll be good to chop it up with you, brother. Definitely. You still walking Bobby, you still walking every day?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I try to get it in twice a day. I just did one a little while before the show. Sure. Yeah.
How far do you go?
Yeah, got it. I try to do 2.5 miles twice a day.
Good. Awesome. Get that cardio in for sure.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, got to.
Everybody out there in Facebook land, if you could do us a favor and please click the share button. Tim Moyer wants us to do 3, 4, and 5. And we didn't even mention Tim Moyer today. Justin, take it away.
Geez.
Tim Moyer.
Gotta mention him. Don't forget Jeffrey either.
The streak
I'm
continues.
Sure Jeffrey will come on.
The streak continues. The Tim Moyer podcast. We should actually, Tim Moyer should do a podcast on his own. I think that would be pretty cool.
I think so.
I
think he should.
We do the next part and have him on. I'll have all 4 of us.
For
Oh
sure.
my God, that'd be great. I'd love to
That'd
do
be
that.
good. Really good. That'd be really good. Because Tim's got a lot of insight into the business too. It'd be fun.
For sure.
Actually, old.
Probably got some great questions too. For sure.
Absolutely, brother. Bobby, thanks so much for hanging out with us. Justin, where are you playing this week? Plug some of your shows this week, brother.
Actually, I'm playing tomorrow at Harpoon Eddie's with Gary Johnson. We're doing just a little duo thing outside, 6 to 9 if the weather holds up. And then Friday, Saturday is Dakers.
Oh, yeah, it's 4th of July, though.
Yeah.
How quick it snuck up on us.
Seriously, man.
And that's a tradition
Right.
for you guys, correct? You guys are up there on the 4th of July?
This Memorial Day weekend was the first one that we haven't done in 21 years.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Wow.
Yep.
Well,
So,
cool. Well, have a good gig. You can check
Thanks.
them out on Showtime on the Facebook page, and also Poor Tim. Check out everything Justin's doing. Check out everything Bob's doing too, man. And,
That's right.
thank you so much, Bob, for hanging out with us today.
Anytime,
Shout out to Rob Ambrose in the back too. Also, shout out to Todd Williams too for always holding it down at the Disruption Network studio. We're going to be going back in the studio really, really soon too, fellas. So when that happens, we'll tweak Local Music Monday a little bit more too. That's for sure.
I can't wait.
So thanks so much to Todd. Follow, like, subscribe, everything Disruption Network, and we'll see you. I'll be back on Wednesday. So see you
Take care.
later.